Morning. We made it. Need more coffee.
Hey, how's it going?
What's going on? We made it.
Yeah,
Another day.
one more day.
Yeah. My buddy used to say, right side of the bar is the right side of the ground. Man, good stuff. I was actually talking to Ahmed for most of the day, most of the evening yesterday, because we're doing an investment summit with Africa uh, in Toronto in the summer. And so I was just introducing one of the key things that they were looking at is increasing the security of transactions among nations within Africa, because apparently that's not exactly straightforward with fakes these days. They want to send your money to the wrong place for the wrong contract.
Africa seems like a very good test bed for anything crypto based.
Yeah, I think that's the reason that Nigeria has a lot of the world's. I think somebody told me Nigeria had the fastest growing population of millionaires.
Yeah, Lagos, or
Yeah,
is
yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah. I read somewhere, I saw something that said that Lagos would become the one of the world's or the world's largest city by 2040 or something. It was some really crazy statistic. I was like, wow, that's really interesting.
it's I mean they the last time I checked they have about $11 billion a year of oil that they export to India,
Wow.
right? The interesting thing that I was learning from the guy in Ghana was that you have the government and then you have the, I don't want to call it legacy royalty, but you know what I mean, right? And the royalty owns the land. So there's that push and pull.
Mm-hmm.
So but yeah, that was the premise. They were looking at all the markets and they're like, you know what? A lot of barriers to enter a lot of these other markets, but based on the connections we have and what we might be able to offer, if you know, if
Is
you
is
just
Nigeria or is I saw a Central African country. It was doing some crypto stuff, but I haven't really kept up with any of the other.
hmm. Funny enough, I'm on the board of DeFiAfrica.net. And they do like crypto trading in Ghana. Um, it's one of those things. The future is here; it's just not evenly distributed yet,
Yeah.
right? And even then, based on the JP Morgan book, do you really want to distribute it? Fuck. I read half a chapter. I'm like, all right, I'm done. So somebody was like, decentralization's a future on LinkedIn, and I was like, no, it isn't.
it's
They're
a
like, can
good
you please
idea in
clarify?
theory, right?
It's and she's like, can you clarify? I'm like, yeah, the Citadel torpedoed a two top 10 crypto projects in the space of 72 hours. The only reason these things exist is because they haven't decided to torpedo you yet,
Exactly.
because they haven't finished taking all the goods off of your ship. They're gonna torpedo the ship when they know they can empty it quick enough.
Yep. It's so true.
I don't know that there's any. Is that wrong? Tell me I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. You would know if
I
I'm
don't
wrong.
think you're wrong.
If somebody gave you enough money, could you sync any crypto project with the right tokenomics advisor?
I believe you could. I mean, it's kind of the same concept as the stock market and everything else. I mean, you know, the only way that it's going to work is if the centralized authorities would be allow it to work, and they have the ability to inflate it, which I think that that's something that they grappled with like the tether situation, and that's why they had some of those meetings. I don't know the full details. I know a guy that had to go to some of those meetings, and just from what he conveyed to me was that it
It sounds
was
like Bohemian Grove of crypto.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. But I think the Fed just wants to have their hands in the tether backdoor, so that they want to have the ability to be able to inflate and inject dollars, or be able to create dollars, so that they can garner and keep control of the situation.
I asked my professor about it, and he said that the challenge with crypto is that money has always been denominated to suit the political border. And what happens if you have a country that is no longer in control of its monetary system? Is that a good place to be? Knowing that any decentralized system can be captured. We now know that, right? And he says, what? We might be using Microsoft coin or Amazon coin, right? He said, even today at Hudson's Bay, you can use like Hudson's Bay dollars to like pay for breakfast in Calgary, right? So, um,
I think that maybe the way the entities are, uh, how they actually work and are structured, like companies, for example, may change in the sense of, there may be a Walmart coin or something, but it would be more associated to, if you have Walmart coins, it's directly associated to the value of that company. It's more um, like a combination between like a stock and something that's actually spendable, like a currency. It'd be like its own. The best way I've ever heard it described is like, um, you have your corporations, and then your corporations are inside of other corporations, which we call states here, and then those corporations are inside of a larger corporation, which is like, the country, and like that concept is very true, uh, when you really break it down. So in my mind, like, if the companies are completely individualized and they have their own economy and ecosystem like that, then I guess it can make sense. But it would still require the government to have a standardized token or coin or something that that can be attached to. That's just my thought.
no, no, you're absolutely right. Like, how do two people transact if they're not sure that they're going to receive the money that was agreed on, or at least the value of the money that was agreed on, right? I mean, today there's all these people that speculate on forex just for very very large transactions, right? Um, what you said something, I lost it. Oh yes. So if we look at Walmart, you go to Walmart, you pay for something. Guess what? Pay enough money, and they'll give you cash back, or they'll give you credit towards more product. So they kind of have this internal yield system already.
Yeah, and my thought is too is, like, if say if you shop at Walmart, and they have Walmart coin, and it's directly associated with the value of that company. For example, say they did away with their stock, and that was pegged directly to their token. Um, the better the company does, then the more valuable your tokens are. That gives you incentive to tell other people that that company is a good company. If it is a good company, and it gives them
Is
more
that the ultimate?
incentive to do
Is that
better
the
as a company.
is that the ultimate form of retail providing liquidity?
It seems so.
I mean, if you trust Walmart's forecasting, you might be able to put together a pretty dynamic burn schedule.
True.
You know, people buy toilet on a Monday, and therefore we need to burn this much of the supply to keep it at $1. It's funny because I've been shit posting on LinkedIn about miner extracted value and stuff like that, and it's actually like helping me get over the shadow ban.
Really,
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
of all
Let me.
things.
Yeah, I guess the algorithm doesn't know how to censor comments yet. So let me post it. Hold on. This is the post, and this is where the McKinsey guy came from. One of these types of things. So if you see, she was like, yeah, you know, decentralized autonomous organizations theoretically remove the possibility of manipulation or corruption by a single entity, right? And I'm like, no, it doesn't. Scale economies eat decentralization for breakfast. And she's like, what do you mean? Good question. I'm like, look at what happened between Citadel and Luna. Decentralized systems exist because they allow it to exist, which you should be theoretically more afraid of.
Yeah, that's the other part that people don't really fully understand either. Is that everybody's like, this is freedom. This allows us to have our own economy or whatever. If you have your Bitcoin, you have your Bitcoin. It's never going to go anywhere. You can spend it, but that's totally untrue because if the federal government comes in and they say, um, you know, you're going to give us your crypto or you're going to go to jail, what are you going to do? I mean, it's like it doesn't really matter, what you do as long as there's that.
Are you trying to tell me that code is not above law?
Some people believe it is. It's just kind of odd.
How dare you, sir? Code is above law. Haven't you read Bearded Wonder? According to Bearded Wonder, decentralization is the future and everything is unhackable. Except for
Yeah.
the money that flows into the system. And if the system is money, then I think we're on the same page. It's not exciting. I people think I'm excited about the things I said.
Once you come to the full realization of the situation, and you don't live in a fantasy land about it, it is less exciting, much less.
So did I have a? I'm trying to think for a moment if instead of pessimistic, they say risk cannot be destroyed; it can only be transformed. Hofstein, right? I don't know. I was watching this Baudrillard lecture and it was breaking my brain in half.
Oh, you were watching too.
There's this one posted at the top. Iron Laser. He's a Linux and he can do both Linux administration and software, right? So he does a lot of his work on AWS, and he suggested. I think the guy in charge of Nintendo was looking for someone, and I suggested Ion Laser for the job, right? and he started. Uh, he referenced the system of objects by a philosopher called Baudrillard, and I just posted it to the top. It's a Twitter moment, so it has all the. I clipped up the lecture into the funniest parts. This guy is frigging hilarious. This is better than stand up. I'm telling you. Check out this pie chart video.
Oh, pie chart.
Isn't it great?
I love that.
Dude, it's an hour of this. There are like 8 lectures like this. So this is just one on Baudrillard. And Baudrillard basically said that the apocalypse has already happened. Humans have ceased to be the sole meaning of things. And it's really like, to me it's stand up with philosophy. It's so great. Somebody said that this guy was like the Bill Hicks of philosophy, and then somebody said that no, Bill Hicks is the stand up of Roderick. Since we're disillusioned with decentralization, do you believe that Craig Wright is Satoshi? You're watching the videos. I love it. It's so good. Once you start watching them, it's hard to stop.
Oh yeah, I just like yeah. Okay, I'm back.
No, it's okay. Isn't it great?
Yeah, yeah,
I've never come across a lecture like this.
yeah. I'm gonna have to.
There's 8 of them.
Okay, never mind. I'll watch all that later. Um,
It's hard to it's hard to take yourself away, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna watch just the whole entire thing
It is
from front
fucking
from beginning to end.
entertaining as shit. Telling you. But yeah, in the beginning of the lecture, he just talks about the fact that humans used to be the meaning of things, and now that's no longer the entire 100% case. And that made me think of proof of work mining, right? To to do what humans don't trust themselves to do with each other.
Yeah, but people don't realize that like the proof of work to proof of stake transition was always baked in since day one. Like that's always been the plan.
You're not a fan of big blocks?
Bit blocks.
Big blocks, right? The argument against moving to proof of stake is that we can have big enough blocks and
Oh, I
right?
thought you said bit blocks. I was
Oh,
like sitting
no,
there for
no.
like a minute. I was like, what is he saying?
What's that? That's another big connect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So um the I, I believe Craig Wright is Satoshi. That's where I disagree with like 99.999% of people.
Wow. What makes you think that?
Just by watching his lectures.
Hmm.
If like I'll give you an example. To me, uh, the way he explains why there's a $21 million limit is the most elegant I've seen. Here, let me share this with you. Let me know what you think about this argument.
Okay. That's the best explanation of that I've ever heard.
That is the best explanation of that I've ever heard. And so, um, because I've watched so many of his lectures, right? Um, I've seen these things kind of play out, right? Um, and, like I have people in the comments section making arguments, like that math doesn't work. I'm like, are you sure? Because here's an Excel spreadsheet, and and if you add enough decimals, right, I can get this to add to 100. Now, you may argue that the argument he's making isn't connected, but you're not going to tell me that the math isn't right or that IEEE 7754 doesn't deal with floating point arithmetic. And then when I went from understanding floating point arithmetic to understanding how computation resolves pi, so to speak, you know what I mean? Because you can't do computation with a number that doesn't end. And then there's this idea of the mantissa, right? Which does this operation of truncating irrational numbers. Let me see if I can find it was another lecture. It was a debate between like a data guy and a math guy. And he says, when you talk about using real numbers, you don't understand how computation works. And the guy was friggin' stuck. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. Here it is. Real numbers and the infinite in analysis.
Okay, I'll take a look. I was
Yeah, yeah, no worries. It's but the premise of this lecture, it's around like 4 minutes in, where he talks about you have to understand the difference between doing math in your brain and doing math on this computer, or doing math on the chalkboard with seemingly infinite values and doing math in this computer. Because if you think that the math on your chalkboard is the same as the math that's coming out of this computer, you're dead wrong. So I found it started around 420. Pardon the time pun. If you start that video at 420, that's where he disagrees with the other guy. And you can see how stuck he gets. That's pretty cool. So this recovery does work. It's a great that guy's smart, eh? Wildeberger? Jesus. going on, Dre? NFTs, and maybe Alaskoshi has been just looking at some of the videos I've been posting. I'm slowly considering the implications of all of it.
Hey there, good morning.
Morning.
So I just joined, but I'm not sure what you're talking about today.
You know how it is with us. We talk about a lot of crazy stuff. Today, if you look at the top, we were looking at um, a guy. He's delivering a philosophy lecture, and depending on your sense of humor, to me, it's just as good as any stand-up comedy special. So we started there, and then I was talking to my friend. His name is NFTs Are Worthless, and um, I told him that I believed that decentralization was dead because any centralized force could take it over and usurp control, especially if the decentralized systems run on money. Because, there are a small handful of people that have disproportionate amounts of wealth. And so if you try to build a system based on wealth, then you're always it's like um, trying to eat a shark underwater. And then we finally ended off with, okay, I believe that Craig Wright is Satoshi. Why do I believe that? Well, so far he's produced the most succinct answer to why there are 20 million Bitcoin. And the reason I believe his explanation has to do with floating point arithmetic, or IEEE 75-4. And the most recent video at about 420 explains the difference between the math we do on a chalkboard and the math we do in computation. So I explained it pretty in a very boring way, but that's what we've been up to. How are you?
I'm pretty good. It sounds riveting. It sounds like something that I might
Oh
go
yeah.
back and listen to. Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
good.
yeah. Just
Okay.
because I'm not familiar with a lot of what you've just explained, but I can see from the tweets that you've pinned that I can go back and actually spend some time, you
Let
know.
me uh, let me tag you in something, and this will be kind of like a test to see if we have the same sense of humor. Okay. I think if we have the same sense of humor, uh, let me just make sure I tag you in it. I think as long as we can find the same sense of humor, we can explain anything to each other.
Okay.
Rob Bizzle with one Z. ROBBIZLE. All right, so check this out. It's about 25 seconds, but see if it makes you laugh. If it makes you laugh, then we're going to have a good time.
Got it. I'm checking it out right now, okay?
Yeah. I want to see if you laugh at it. That's the test.
No, I was actually I like it. I like it. I think I'll tell you a quick story. Last night I was up pretty late reading a prospectus for a company that is about to IPO, and I enjoy reading these 100 and odd page documents because you get to see what people are doing behind the scenes, or you're supposed to be able to see what people are doing behind the scenes. But what you see sometimes is a lot of obfuscating of details that they could say very clearly, but they choose not to because they think that if they say it more clearly, it won't have the intent that they want the prospectus to have, which is to make you part with your hard-earned cash in order to finance whatever they are doing. So one of the things that they did pretty poorly was to use pie charts. Um, they decided they used quite a few in the document, but at no point in time did they just do a very simple thing of just like labeling the pie chart in such a way that you didn't have to like scroll through a list of colors, some of which were very close to each other, in order to determine which section of the pie chart actually represented that section. And I just found that to be super sketchy, but at the same time, super interesting because it might be smart to do something like that where someone would just take a glance, decide that you were trying to share information, but you weren't sharing it in a way that was absolutely clear. And so you get away with that kind of gloss over effect. But okay, I digress.
No, that's a as perfect a way as I can explain it. Trying
Yeah.
to reduce complexity to a pie chart. Ah, pie chart. I love the way he says it. NFTs, can you do a good impression of them? Ah, you probably have a better voice for it.
Right. No, I didn't get to hear him so clearly, so I'll reserve my
Mhm.
my mimicking
So,
for another time.
where are you from? I'm Guyanese.
Oh, really? I'm from
Yeah,
Jamaica.
yeah. I was wondering if you knew Adopt a Youth Foundation.
Adopt a Youth. It sounds really familiar, but I can't say I know anybody
Okay.
from that Adopt a Youth Foundation.
Jillian Robinson was the head of it. I used to do like some work with their students. They have like a huge student body.
Yeah. Did
Yep.
you say Julian or Jillian?
Robinson.
Hmm. Okay.
And then who was the other guy? Richard. He's an engineer. Um,
Oh, cool.
yeah. But I thought I knew you from there. That's why.
Oh, cool, cool, cool.
Are you
I
in Jamaica
thought.
right now?
Sorry, I'm in Jamaica for another couple of days. I
Oh,
thought
nice.
you might not have been at least not American because of how you said
Hmm.
the letter Z.
Yeah. The it's interesting because I'm technically a horse, right? On Twitter,
Right? A
right? And
unicorn, actually, aren't you?
yeah, yeah, a horned horse, my friend calls it. Um, uh, people will assume that I'm from a certain place by the way I talk, right?
Right, 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 right.
And it's funny because a lot of people will say like racist things to me, assuming that I'm not where I'm from, which is great. All these
Are
browns
you
taking a.
are you
No,
living where you're from right now, or do you live
no,
outside of that?
I'm in Toronto.
Oh, cool, cool, cool,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. So yeah, it's always good times with this voice that my parents gave me. They're like, "You're not gonna have a Guyanese accent." I'm like, "Okay."
Just by virtue of location.
Well,
No,
and
that's
they
cool, cool.
and it's the way they talk to me. They didn't speak in patois at home,
Oh, my
not unless they were upset at me.
my sister-in-law is Guyanese, so I've been getting a
Oh
lot
wow.
more exposure to the culture from her. Um, and it's it's very rich, especially when it comes to um, explaining the significance of foods and the differences between how we prepare food, certain foods here, and how she prepares them. It's
Oh
always a
yeah.
rich experience.
Well, we have that. Well, I mean, Guyanese people, the well, not the vast majority, at least half of them are essentially Punjabi,
Yes.
right? Like my last name is Jagdeo, my mom's last name is Singh. Those aren't Guyanese names, right? The only Guyanese people are the Amerindians, right?
Yes, everyone else has been imported.
Everyone else has been imported making rice. You know, my my family were a long line of. Well, my mom's side they had rice, and my dad's side they had tailoring and clothes.
Ah, nice. And my sister-in-law's lineage includes a very a very famous Guyanese to Jamaican, especially who passed Jamaicans who passed through. So Walter Rodney is someone that's a member of her family, and he's someone that my Guyanese lecturers at the university ensured that we understood his contribution to essentially Jamaica's civil rights um, era in the 70s. So I really appreciated that, like the fact that she has claim to all of that as well.
The For a lot of my life, I looked at my parents left Guyana because they changed political systems.
Mm-hmm.
When they changed political systems, you didn't get to own what you used to own, and if you didn't want to sell it to the government, they burned it to the ground. Right?
Horrific.
Yeah.
Horrific.
Yeah, I knew a Guyanese judge. Imagine a Guyanese judge. I'm like, how the fuck you became a judge, right? People struggle to get a job when they come here from Guyana. This guy became a judge. And he told me he had like this business, and on Friday they were like, "Hey, we're gonna take over your business, and we want to pay you this much." And he's like, "My business is worth much more than that." And on Monday, it was worth nothing because they burned it to the ground.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's
Ooh.
why they left. And then I started peeling back the layers as I got older. I'm like, well, what is the environment upon which this political fight was being set? And I came to the conclusion it's not necessarily Guyanese people deciding to fight with each other, but larger powers
Mhm.
picking their forces and setting them against each other.
Mhm.
You look at Trinidad and it's blacks versus Indians.
Mhm.
Same thing in Guyana. I wonder why that is.
Um, we could take a couple guesses. I think a lot of the times we've seen where we've seen where people choose offshore locations to enact, I guess, or to demonstrate that they what they think power means. So I'm always very curious as to how it is that empires are fighting against each other, but never in the land where the empires are from.
It's a proxy war.
It's always a proxy war, and it's
And so,
always using the most dispensable.
like, I have either the advantage or disadvantage of being born in Canada, right? So when I talk to people from Guyana or from Trinidad, like I play steel pan, right? So I've,
Uh-huh.
interacted with a lot of Trinis, right? And you see black Trinis and Indian Trinis getting along 99.9% of the time. And then when it's election season, it's like they never met each other before in their life.
Yeah.
I'm like, you guys were partying in February, and now you're at each other's throats in September. What happened here? right? And then they explain to me what's going on. I'm like, so you've been set against each other. And they're like, no. I'm like, well,
Yes,
but you
you've been
get along
programmed.
99.9% of the time,
And every 4 years leading up,
right?
it's like blinders.
Yeah. Kamala Harris been doing this thing for so long, but and then it's like, yeah, but and it's I laugh because it's horrific. And I've chosen to laugh instead of cry, if that makes sense.
No, it
I
does.
don't
It
enjoy
does.
these things, right? It's just astonishing.
You know, I heard someone ask recently about the state of CARICOM's single
Yes.
currency. And I know we also have another thing going on in CARICOM, which to me seems very trivial, but it isn't. It isn't that Jamaica has decided to up and nominate somebody else to play a role in this figurehead organization, which is just a power move. And that it has, in effect, divided the region and kind of made it so that people have to choose who they'll vote for and what will be the consequence of that. In my mind, it shouldn't be a big deal. But given that the CARICOM community that we've organized hasn't taken very bold steps towards unification, but more so, um, you know, kind of low hanging fruits steps. You know, we're in the same region, so let's trade together, let's talk together as a voice because we have a similar history, but nothing that has been like super bold and um, and radical in the way that we've chosen to band together. Everything feels, in my opinion, to be very surface level because we haven't we haven't been in again in my opinion we haven't um been able to see what would radical unification actually do for the members of this community. Let us make do with the small strides that we can actually do as individual units, um, and continue to even hold each other back by not being fully committed to this one Caribbean process. And so here we are in the middle of one country deciding to put someone else up, and the other country saying you didn't have the right to do that. And then we're slowly seeing all these other places putting support behind this one country. And the question really is that after this election comes and goes, what will happen to the agenda within CARICOM? What will happen to the initial motivations and the things that have been holding us together? Will this be something to accelerate that process or retard it or just keep it the way that it has been, which hasn't been radical enough, you know, to kind of change the lives of the people within the region? And I fear that should whatever the outcome is, the fact is that during this process, we are we're learning a lot about each other, and it might very well not be it might very well not be towards the kind of outcome that causes us to be more united at the end. So I feel as though for that reason I would have preferred for something else to happen as opposed to what is, but I don't get to make the choices, do I?
Um, I think it was Fabian, right, who used to be the chair of CARICOM,
Okay.
right? Who's in charge now?
So they rotate it like every 6 months, I believe. I believe it's whose turn is it? I'm not sure. It's one of our brothers, but I'm not sure whose turn it is. We can check really quickly.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It's loading up. Executive management, CARICOM, treaty, blah blah blah. With the secretariat. Directorates, la 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 la. Managing. Well, they have an opportunity for a managing director. You want to apply?
Sounds like you might be
You
up for
want
the job.
you want to check it from the inside?
They would be they would be in for a lot if I ever got that work.
You're gonna post
I
the
want to
job.
go. I want to go back to what you mentioned though
Yeah.
about the we coexist relatively peacefully for all this time, and then when it comes to the point of choosing our leaders, there is all this acrimony that emerges. I don't know that it emerges or it resurfaces, right? Um, but what I was thinking about when you were talking about that is that um, I think there are only two, and you can correct me if there are others within the region that have this very strident division along racial lines. Um, and I'm wondering what's unique about those two countries, and and if it's by design or it's by virtue of the population composition. So I've been curious about that, and I think you're someone who can give me their thoughts on it.
So the first book that you would, the first chapter that you would have to read is Howard Zinn's A People History of the U.S. Ever heard of that book?
I'm checking, but Howard Zinn.
Howard Zinn, I'll post it, A People's History of the U.S.
Mhm.
Howard Zinn, A People's History of the United States.
I found it.
Yeah. So if you, historyisaweapon.com. What a title. Historyisaweapon.com. Hold on. And it's the first chapter. And what you see is the diary entry of Columbus. Have you ever seen Columbus's writings?
I've seen a few.
Right? Uh, so let me tweet this out. They brought us parrots and balls of cotton and spears and many other things, which they exchanged for the glass beads and hawks' bells. They willingly traded everything they owned. They were well built with good bodies and handsome features. They do not bear arms and do not know them, for I showed them a sword, and they took it by the edge and cut themselves out of ignorance.
Mm.
They have no iron. Their spears are made of cane. They would make fine servants. With 50 men, we could subjugate them all and make them do whatever we want. So that's how the book starts.
I'm committed. I am.
Right. And so what the whole book is a history of how the history of the again, it's an extreme position, but you need these extreme positions, right? Just to clarify, right?
Yeah.
You don't take. I don't believe personally. I
Middle
don't believe in any
middle of the road lines
Yeah.
don't do much for defending a position, right?
Yeah, exactly. So with that book, one way to look at that book, or at least the first five chapters, is the rise of the U.S. through everyone who was subjugated during that process. Again, an extreme take. So you look at, they had black slaves, right? And then when there were too many black slaves in ratio, they brought over Indians, right,
Mm-hmm.
to balance everything out, right? And I'll give you a steel pan example because I have my steel pan here. Right. You, I'm Guyanese, and steel pan is an instrument from Trinidad. Whenever
Yeah.
I go to play a gig, I'll have a Trini person come up to me, and they'll ask me, "Hey boy, where you from?" And I'll say I'm Guyanese. And if you see the disappointment in their face
Hmm.
that I'm not from Trinidad, it hurts, right?
Oh.
Because they're like, "This is our shit. How dare you?"
And I think because the point of them seeing you play, walking up to you, you have a lot of the visual cues of someone who could be from Trinidad, right?
Exactly. I could
And
pretend like I was from Trinidad if I wanted to and
yeah,
indulge them.
because I mean that accent is not is a little funny, but
Yeah, but it's from
it,
Shagana, that's why, right?
but it is a little on point as well. Can I just interject here for the since you're
Yeah,
recording to say that I think I can speak objectively on this, and that when it comes to encapsulating the Caribbean humor, Trinidadians have they are the leaders, they are
mm-hmm.
at the top of the totem pole. No one is as funny to me, more intrinsically funny. I'm not talking about like comedians who have a gift for gab.
Right. Just the average, if you took a
Just the
random
average
sample, yeah,
person who is from Trinidad has a special level of humor that I don't think anyone else has. And for
it's
that, I'm very grateful to them.
it's astonishing. The biggest challenge we would have at gigs is my steel pan teacher. You know, we would play gigs together. I'd play soprano, he played double seconds,
Mm-hmm.
and we would have a microphone. Miking the pans.
Right.
And he would say the most offensive stuff in the world, making fun of the people in the wedding, making fun of the bride,
Exactly.
making. And I'm like, dude, this microphone is on.
No. I have my fair share of Trinidadian friends, and let me tell you, I love, especially when I go to Trinidad. It's always such a rich experience. Anyway, we digress. Let's talk about the history of US Zin's work and how it ties into understanding this question of
Yes,
racial tensions within Caribbean islands.
yes. So the question is, are blacks and Indians natural enemies? You know?
Mm.
Yeah, and if you look at the politics of Guyana and you look at the politics of Trinidad, it's exactly the same. Why? Because demographics explains two-thirds of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, like my grandfather was killed for switching from the Indian to the black side. Like that's the other reason we had to leave. So it's like there's like a deep, deep racial division. And if you look at Trinidad, there's an Indian party and there's a black party. And the
Mm-hmm.
black vote for the black party and the Indians vote for the Indian party. Same thing in Guyana.
Yeah.
And then when you look at that Howard Zinn and you read the first few chapters, right? They go from you're subjugating blacks to subjugating blacks and Indians, and then what you're doing is subjugating the woman. If you can subjugate the woman, you can subjugate the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
Mm.
an extreme take, right? And this is when people hear me say this, they think it's a racial thing, and I hate a certain group. But I'm kind of the Thomas Sowell school of history, which is that history is kind of the only true psychology. And it's not clear to me that if the US didn't abolish slavery, then anyone else would have done it first.
It's
If
not clear
you
to you that if the US hadn't abolished slavery, then no one else might have done it.
first, yep, because of the amount of economy that it had. If you look at the letters between the Americans and the Arab world, when Americans suggested to the Arab world that they should stop slavery, they were like, "Are you nuts? You must be drunk." That was the response.
Yeah. But the thing too about, and I mean, we're not going to go down that one because it's such a
Mhm.
ant's nest. But when we look at the fact that people have been working for other people for centuries, right, millennia even, in this kind of servantile capacity. The difference between that history and what modern history with African people and Indian people coming from their homelands to the West, the major difference is that there was an extent of brutality that was added to that arrangement that I feel required it to come to the point where, it had to be stopped because it just wasn't sustainable, for them to add all of these things to in fact keep the subjugation going is what caused it to be different from what was practiced in the Arab world. um, and I get a hint of that when you read the beginning of the book, the
Right.
letter from Columbus. He immediately went from, or maybe not immediately, but he would have communicated it, that he went from seeing that their lack of exposure to his weapon or his weaponry meant that these people should be subjugated. And it's only when that subjugation didn't go as smoothly as planned that they added all of these additional elements to keep it going because of the economic imperative. And that's what led to the unsustainable, or the unsustainable nature of the slavery that was practiced on our side of the world. Um,
Did the
so
Mongol did Mongol did the Mongol Empire have slaves? Right. I'm wondering
we would have to
because I
look.
know they were pretty brutal for the people who didn't give in as well.
Yeah, yeah, but they were brutal. I believe. No, um let me
I
not
mean,
mislead
look,
here.
feel free to be wrong. Everything we say here is wrong, right? And
No,
none
it's
of
not a
us,
matter of being wrong or
right?
right, but like also just not like talking out of your mouth because you
Hmm,
have
hmm.
one. I'm a little annoyed with that kind of approach now, especially on Twitter. People talk outside of their mouths just because, you know. So stuff like history, we can be like, okay, I think I heard this one time and you say that, but if you haven't, then you know,
Exactly.
calm down. But yeah, but your point about the Mongolians being brutal towards those who didn't go along with them is interesting because they're also a very ancient civilization or, grouping of people.
Yeah, it's I guess to kind of round it out, a few years ago, they started using this word colonizer, right? And I
Hmm.
was like, if you look at history, I don't know any empire that didn't involve themselves in colonizing, right? Is there any large country that didn't do this very same thing if they were in that position? I can't find them.
Hmm. No, no, no. A lot of all the historical accounts probably talk about going somewhere else to get this kind of, economic input into into
Oh,
their work.
you- you're talking about how far do they go to export the Commonwealth?
That's one part of it, but I was just coming off of the point of colonization before we had that word for it was actually being practiced because at no point in time did people say to themselves, I am going to take my neighbor who is exactly like me and put them beneath me in terms of hierarchy. It's always, I'm going to go for the person who I know is not exactly like me and put them beneath me in terms of hierarchy. So I
Mm,
agree with that point.
mm.
Yeah.
So, KC, you made it.
Well, hello again.
Hello
One
again.
more trip. One more trip through the day. Let's do it again.
In the bumblebee.
Ah, yeah. So this
Amazing.
is a. How you doing, man? How's your day going?
Things are good. Someone asked me how to use Twitter Space for their business, right? Um, because I was sharing with them uh, some of the leads that had come from just interacting either on Spaces or people going from my Twitter to my LinkedIn or even just like business development in the reply section,
Sure.
right? And so I wanted to kind of open up a space and record it so she could listen to the wide gamut of kind of shit we shit talking.
Plow through in a given session. Yeah. You know, that was for so for me, I had only been like strictly a Facebook user. You know, I was like
I'm sorry to
busy.
hear that. Yeah.
I right. I I mean I'm surfing online, but I'm busy. I'm working. I got family, and the rest of my extended family is on Facebook. So that's where I go to get the family updates. And I come into Twitter Spaces on a crypto search, and within a month, I was reading uh, dark matter theory and dark theory articles from MIT and UC Berkeley
You know,
on
dark matter doesn't
online.
exist, right?
Dude, it's such a horrifyingly ignorant situation. They
Mm-hmm.
don't. Nobody knows. This is just a bunch of people that are taking their best guess. God love them. They don't know shit, but they're trying. They're using their imagination, and they're like, "Well, it could be this." That's the best anybody's got.
You're right. It's interesting. You can see a bunch of the stuff that I posted. This guy's lecturing on a philosopher named Baudrillard, and it's fucking hilarious, dude. If you watch his shit. Um, but when you talk about dark matter, actually, I know a guy um, who has disproven dark matter, and he's funded by DARPA, and he's using what's called quantized inertia to create electronic thrust because he wants to get to another galaxy. He's not satisfied with ours. So, you know, my experience of dark matter is I found the guy who's actually trying to delete it and says it's all bullshit, and I'll prove it to you that your dark matter does not account for wide binaries. And I interviewed him. And actually, here's the craziest thing. You want to go down the rabbit hole?
Yeah.
The dark matter people deleted his Wikipedia article on quantized inertia. I swear to God.
That's awesome.
Everything on Wikipedia is archived. So you can see the Wikipedia Council of the Elderly saying, you know what? Nah, this doesn't pass the smell test. And then when I did some digging on their account names, I realized they were dark matter researchers. And I was like, oh shit, no wonder you disagree with this guy and want to get the Wikipedia deleted. If he's right, you guys lose all your funding as an entire asset class of
Bye
research.
bye. Poof, gone. Just
Wikipedia, that's your Wikipedia, dude. They deleted the article of a project funded by DARPA. What could DARPA know about energy? But me, Wikipedia, man, I know about it. Fuck DARPA. What? Jesus Christ.
And you know, and the crazy thing is that overall kind of sort of theme keeps on getting repeated. Like, I can talk to you more about micro and macro meshworks with the accompanying micro and macro AI systems than I ever want to be able to. I don't want to know that shit, but through these experiences and spaces, I was exposed to it a lot and dug into a little bit. And like, oh, okay, I get the basic idea here. All right. And you look at what Amazon is doing with their IoT routers, where basically any device that drives through its field of range is assimilated for as long as it's in there and used. So your smartwatch, your car, all the electronics that are Bluetooth compatible or have any sensors, they're all accessed. You're now part of the meshwork. Thanks for contributing.
Well, you
Appreciate
know,
it.
Amazon 10 years ago, and Google did the same thing, is they stopped using Cisco's hardware and started developing their own network fabric. So if you look up Google Andromeda is what powers Google Cloud Platform. And so what happened was they were sending the package of the network fabric, the router, I think, and it got sent to the wrong place. Somebody opens up the package, and you're like, "What the fuck is this?" It didn't look like Cisco, and it was sent. It was Amazon. They're like, "Oh shit, this is what Amazon's working on." Oh no! And so if you look up Amazon Fiber.
Oh, sorry, I gotta go.
Oh, that's Paiju. Hold on, that's Nigeria. I'll give you guys a call soon.